Well, welcome. I'm so excited to have this doTERRA Sun conversation. It's again been long anticipated. My name is Laura Jacobs. I'm your host. And I want you to know that doTERRA has spent a number of years, right? Not days, weeks, or months, but years. In fact, it's taken over 3 years to ensure that the products perform the way they are intended. And there's rigorous testing that goes into verifying the product performance. And doTERRA has done all of its due diligence. And so, as we've requested this line for some time, they've been on it. It's just taken time to ensure that it's exactly what we want. Having just returned from Mexico, I am actually quite into the summer sun care feeling already. And summer is here and it's arrived whether we like it or not, right? It's not waiting for an invitation to show up in our lives. And so this is our reality. And I'm just thrilled we get to have this conversation because, again, having just lived this out, it's like all my sun knowledge has come roaring back to me. So I want you to think, first of all, what is on your summer bucket list? What do you see yourself doing? Will you be in an exotic location like Mexico or Hawaii or Belize or the Bahamas or goodness knows where, or even in your own backyard, perhaps next to a swimming pool, maybe a neighborhood swimming pool, whatever the case may be? Do you have plans for spending time in the sun? Or perhaps like myself, you love to hike and get outdoors, which I try to do every single day, and just, soak up the sun and get that outdoors feeling. Maybe you've got small children. And so you'll find yourself spending lots of time out in the yard, maybe chalking on the driveway, whatever the case is, or maybe even driving. Are you aware that if you're driving from here to there, I know on my bucket list, I want to go to Montana. I've had Montana and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho on my bucket list for a really long time. So that's a number of hours from my house, right? So think about the time that your face will spend in the sun just driving in the car. A lot of times we don't recognize the power of the sun even through a car window. So, I would say I'm a self-proclaimed sun worshiper. I don't know if you may feel the same way. I grew up in California near the beach with a swimming pool. And so, yes, the sun was most assuredly my friend. I love the sun. To this day, at nearly the age of 60, I find it still medicine for my soul and my body. And of course, not only is it essential to the things on earth for growth and life, ourselves included, but it is a massive source of light and warmth. And it's a very, very positive signal to our body. In fact, it's necessary for us to actually create serotonin, our feel-good chemical or neurotransmitter that helps us stay feeling uplifted and mentally hopeful and positive, as well as the sun with the light coming on and off during the day triggers the release of melatonin. As the sun sets in the day, our pineal gland is aware that the end of the day is near and it signals it's time for the release of melatonin. And so therefore it helps us with our circadian rhythms and our sleep cycles as well. So really important to our ability to be rhythmic with our day with light and dark. And lastly, one of the most important things we can recognize is our capacity to synthesize vitamin D, which is essential to the actual absorption of calcium, not to mention a lot of other functions in the body. And, as we jump into our discussion, let's be sure to cover kind of the magic behind how to be the active partner with your body in producing vitamin D. But before we go there, let's be sure we recognize that too much of a good thing can be too much of a good thing. And the sun would definitely be one of those things. There's certain hours of the day that aren't optimal, and certainly lengthy hours. Anybody who's spent a lot of time in the sun, whether it's a recreational choice or an employment situation, we can see definite damage that can occur to the skin from excessive sun damage. Anything from actual skin cancers to sunspots, or what's also known as age spots, wrinkles, premature aging, and a loss of the skin's elasticity. So there's definitely a magic or an art to what I like to call sun worshiping, or rather spending time in the sun and making sure we optimize those benefits while avoiding the risks. Now, I think it's really important for us to cover, first of all, kind of some rules of the game, right? The sun, being in the sun is a game of sorts, and it does have its rules. So I think it's important for us to look at some of those things as we move into our conversation about sun care. So we have sun intelligence. Now, I want you to know, again, grew up by the beach, by Santa Cruz, California, grew up with a swimming pool. No matter what house we lived in, we had a swimming pool. And so I spent a lot of time out in the sun as a kid. And as I've grown older, more mature, I started to get more sun conscious or sun intelligent. And I look back on some of the choices I made. I wouldn't necessarily reflect on my childhood because, I was a kid, but in my young adult years, when I became a more dedicated sun worshiper, right? Like calculated time in the sun, loved having a tan, loved what that felt like. Then I would say I made some choices that I wouldn't look back on with favor. In fact, I've worked with a skincare specialist in the last 6 months. And one of the things that she's told me is a lot of what I'm working with, shall we say, right now in my late 50s and moving into my next decade, is she said, I'm looking at the sun damage I created in those young adult years. And so, we don't know what we don't know, or we put our fingers in our ears as young adults, we think we're immortal. And as I look back, I think that I maybe could have made some better choices. And so I'm thrilled to not only have new ideas and concepts and most of all these hero products to work with, but to share that with the next generations, to help others enjoy the sun as much as I did, and yet prevent from, experiencing wrinkles or age spots or things prematurely or unnecessarily. So a couple of rules I've found to be exceptionally important, most of all for me, is the time that I go out into the sun. I'm actually quite a stickler when it comes to sun participation, and I've actually been this way for decades. I watch the time of day, and I've always been quite a fan of the range you see here on the slide, 10 to 4, and it really depends on where you are. So I live in Utah at a very, very high elevation at about 5,000 feet, which is a really different experience with the sun versus, for example, a couple of our children live in southern Utah. That's more at 2,000 foot elevation. And I notice a really big difference in my body's experience with the sun. And then, of course, I was just in Los Cabos, Mexico, where I'm at sea level. And once again, I noticed a difference in my body's experience with the sun. So pay attention to your altitude, because it radically alters the impact of the sun and how harsh it is on your body. Of course, being closer to the equator is another factor. So I really love sticking with these hours, but then I also watch on my phone. I have an iPhone. And if you just go into the weather app that you received with your phone, the one that's standard, little cloud on the icon, and you look at the weather that you do all the time. But I found I was just, again, on this vacation in Mexico and was with several friends, and several of them had no idea how to check the UV status of the day. So if you scroll down, you can spot for yourself what is the UV status. So I have a rule, right? So back to that vitamin D conversation, that you want to be out in the sun at a 4 or higher in order for your body to have that vitamin D synthesis experience. Now, higher, of course, is, there is a ceiling to exposure, but you need to be at a 4 or higher, which is why it's difficult for us to synthesize vitamin D during the winter months, because the UV level is radically lower. So I look for a 4 when I'm purposely getting my vitamin D. And they say you want to be out, 20 to 30 minutes without sunscreen in order to have that full experience. Well, for me, again, that's the morning hours. In Utah, I can go out at 9 in the morning, depending on the time of year. And I watch my phone. And when I see the time is right, that might be the time where I go and garden or hang out on my patio, go for a walk, so that I can purposefully get that exposure. However, I watch it like a hawk. I usually like to be out between the range of 4 and 6. 7 is my ceiling. And then once it's past 7, I am covering myself with, the things that you see here, because that's when the sun's rays can be far more damaging. So I love the time frame. I watch it at night as well, or in the afternoon. So again, having just been in Cabo, watched my phone, and ideally I was out 4:30, 5 o'clock. The sun was still wonderful and radiant. was still able to get sun-kissed with a lovely tan, did not burn while I was there, and just was really careful. And so during those, extra hours, I took extra precautions. Obviously, clothing and certain clothing actually has UV factors, can be super, super helpful in protecting our bodies. Sunglasses, of course, and some of them actually have special lenses to help us protect ourselves from damaging rays. Obviously, a hat for women for our faces, and men too, right? Like hats are great. I was involved in some athletic activities. I went walking every day, and whenever possible, I had a hat on, and found that's really, really helpful for protecting my face. That's one of the places I can see those, it's like my scrapbook, right? From my past is my face. And so definitely made some better choices there as the decades have gone on. And then lastly, sunscreen was a critical factor. Had I not used sunscreen, I would have been crispy fried during, some of those times I was out during the daytime. And I had some friends who chose not to use sunscreen, and they were definitely crispy fried. And that's where that damage can come from. It's not worth it. So let's talk sunscreen and help ourselves become more educated about the two types of sunscreens we can choose from. One is chemical, and the other category is mineral. Chemical sunscreens act differently in that they're designed to actually absorb UV rays as a form of protection, while mineral sunscreens actually reflect the UV rays to protect our skin. So kind of an interestingly opposite mechanism. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been a stickler. I ditched and switched a long time ago chemical products from my life. Perhaps I didn't feel like I was ahead of my time, but when I look back now, 30 years later, having made those decisions a long time ago, and I look at people around me and who are catching on when, I really was ahead of my time. And I raised my kids this way. I have 4 daughters and a son. And, I just looked ahead at the quality of their life and the quality of their health and their skin, and recognized that chemicals weren't where it was at. And so I want you to know that finding natural sunscreens has been a journey. They weren't easy to locate, and they weren't always clean, right? They would say natural, but to find an actual natural, clean sunscreen was tough. And so often they were primarily ridden with zinc, which they still are. We'll talk about that. But the zinc, well, let's say it looked pretty pasty white, right? So it was pretty unappealing to go around, screened, but looking pasty white. It was sort of the antithesis of that sun experience. So I'm just so thrilled that those products have come such a long ways. And doTERRA, for me, has taken them across the line in ways like no other product ever has. Again, I'm an ingredient reader, a label reader. I'm a stickler for natural. And I just literally won't do chemical. I don't care how, but I'd rather not go in the sun and skip the moment than put a chemical sunscreen on my body. Number one, they're chemicals. So they degrade when they're exposed to UV rays, which generates free radicals. Well, we don't need more free radicals in our lives. That's, again, the antithesis of wellness. It causes aging and can damage any number of things in our body. That's what free radicals do. And then truly, one of the main reasons we've always avoided chemical products in our household, again, I mentioned the 4 girls for a reason, is because they're such big time hormone disruptors. The last thing we need as individuals, men and women both, are chemicals into our body that disrupt our hormone balance. Like, who needs that? And lastly, because they're not clean, they can so often cause reactions from the body. And we oftentimes call them skin reactions or skin allergies. But the skin is very much a reflection of what's happening inside of the body, and our liver has to process these things. So taking a little bit deeper dive into the conversation of toxicity, if you've been with me in any other conversations, you know that my, shall we say, doctrine of wellness is very, very simple. It's accomplished by making sure we shift patterns of, our body has root needs. And when those root needs aren't met, we get what we call root causes. And those root causes are twofold: too much of the wrong thing, too little of the right thing. And they collaborate with each other, right? When you don't have enough of certain nutrients in your body, you're going to deal more poorly with toxins. And then if your body is overwhelmed by toxins, you might have a difficult time actually processing them. And the body can achieve what we call a toxic load where it can manage less and less those toxins. So don't be surprised if that's where those skin allergies or skin reactions come from, is they are a reflection of the body's organs, especially the liver and the kidneys, and their inability to process those toxins. So let's just eliminate the exposure altogether. We really can control the amount of toxins we're exposed to. We can choose what we put in our body, what we put on our body, and that very much includes our sun care and our sunscreen products. So I'm just, again, thrilled to be able to offer this conversation about the fact that we have choices, right? We do not have to choose sunscreens that, pass through our skin, into our body, offer additional free radicals to our existence, disrupt our hormones, and can even cause negative skin reactions. And the answer to that is mineral sunscreen filters. So the latter choice, right, which means that they're going to help us reflect the UV rays as a form of protection. So how they work is they form a physical barrier that, again, is a reflective barrier, and it reflects away from our body the UVA and the UVB rays. And what's really cool about them is they don't degrade like the chemical sunscreens do when exposed to those UV rays. Another thing that's highly beneficial about mineral sunscreens is they're effective immediately. Chemical sunscreens typically require a waiting period after application in order to be effective. The other thing that's really beautiful is that the formulations that doTERRA has prepared for us are safe for all skin types. Now, just for those of you who want to geek out and get a little sciencey and want to know what the ingredients are, the main mineral sunscreen filters in these products are titanium oxide and zinc oxide. And both of them, again, are recognized as generally safe for all skin types. So here's, in conclusion to that mineral versus chemical conversation, what we've got and what we don't got, right? This is so exciting, is in our doTERRA sun care line, we've got an SPF of 30 or more in all products. We have broad spectrum protection. That means more than one type of UV ray, covers all of our UV rays, water resistant, naturally soothing, also very nourishing to the skin. I can't believe how nourishing these ingredients are. Lightweight, moisturizing, and reef safe. None of these, benzene, oxybenzone, parabens, phthalates, dyes, and nanoparticles. Now, what nanoparticles, what does that mean? Well, zinc, if you have a nano zinc oxide, the particles are so tiny, they can enter the skin and get into the bloodstream. And again, we're not putting our sunscreen on us to get in us. So the particles need to remain larger, so they do the job we hired them to do without entering our bloodstream and adding more of a chemical load to the body. Now, one of the things I absolutely love, oh my gosh. So let me just say this. I have tried to make my own natural sunscreen. In fact, I have, and I've used them plentifully, even coconut oil. I don't know if you know this, but even coconut oil, depending on the type, did it come from Mexico? Did it come from the Philippines? Has a natural SPF, anywhere from 10, which is probably pretty average, upwards of even 40 SPF has been said about certain coconut oils. I have not found one that has an SPF of 40. I would say I've experienced maybe something around the 10, where I can see I have some endurance, right, to sun exposure. So it's so wonderful when we look into nature and we realize that nature has produced natural sun protection for us. And I just love that doTERRA has harnessed that and placed it in our products. I love that they're calling these hero ingredients or superhero ingredients. So when it comes to essential oils, the key oils you're going to find in the products are frankincense, helichrysum, and oh my gosh, my favorite, carrot seed oil. That's one of the things I would strive and search for, was a high quality carrot seed oil in trying to make my own sun care products. So let me just say this. I've had bottles of this, that, and the other, and I was like a chemist trying to formulate all this stuff, trying to get a consistent feel and effect. And they were generally pretty messy and not easy to apply, not easy to carry around. I would find them leaking, especially if I traveled. So just thank you, doTERRA, for taking the time and being so diligent to produce for us what I have always hoped to produce for myself and no longer need to try. Okay, when it comes to additional superhero ingredients, there are those so many rich, amazing, nourishing ingredients along the lines of vitamin E. You'll see the word tocopherols on the label for vitamin E. You've got also, and again, I just had to laugh when I looked at this list of ingredients, because like, this is exactly what I went out and bought, right? I went and purchased jojoba, raspberry seed, and carrot seed oils when I was making my own, not to mention shea butter. Excuse me, got a tickle. And cocoa butter. And of course, how many of us have used aloe vera, right? And you can imagine that's in the after sun care product. Red algae and hyaluronic acid. Now, these again are all ingredients that I've strived for. When it comes to red algae, note to self, have you ever taken our Z Omega product? One of the ingredients in Z Omega is astaxanthin. Astaxanthin comes from green algae that is grown in very long tubes in Israel, purposefully in the desert where it gets epic sun exposure. When the green algae is hit by those sun rays, it changes itself into a red algae and it excretes a new chemistry, really. And the reason why you find the astaxanthin in our Z Omega product is it's a natural preservative, but it has tons of benefits. It's a very healthy ingredient, one of which it actually increases or is beneficial to our own response to sun. And so I'm very much a stickler for also taking our Z Omega internally all year round, but especially conscientious about that when it comes to sun exposure, because I've just found it to be an assistance when it comes to sun endurance. And then the hyaluronic acid, I mean, any top skincare line or products out there, you're going to find that as a primo ingredient. So again, could not be more thrilled that doTERRA has chosen to add it to this line. And one of the things it does is it's very, very helpful in promoting skin moisture and hydration. Now, to continue our list of superhero ingredients, we've got bisabolol. I don't even know how to say that word. The cool ingredient, I actually don't know what it is. I'm gonna have to check it out, but I'm sure it's good. It's again another soothing ingredient, so I'm sure we'll see that in the aftercare. The aloe vera, which again, do we need to talk about aloe vera? Like everybody knows how incredible and how beneficial aloe vera is for the skin. And then Arnica montana flower. Arnica has been famous in a homeopathic approach to health. It's very good for trauma or injury. Are some of the primary reasons that it's typically sought after. So once again, to protect our skin from any sort of insult and to help it restore, you're going to see some critical factors of the entire line are protection and restoration. So these ingredients were particularly chosen for those benefits. Now, obviously, we want toxin-free products. We want effective products. We want safe products for our body, but we also get to be conscientious of our environment. And I think, how many of you have ever gotten in a pool or, a lake or whatever that's more still water, and you can see this oil just floating off of you, and you're like in this pool of like what looks like an oil spill, right, coming from you. And so we truly do spill into whatever water we're in, whatever's on us. And so if we're using those chemically based products, they are not reef safe, they are not reef friendly, and they contain harmful ingredients where we could literally harm nature, most especially the little creatures that live in and around the water and rely on it. And so I just love, again, that doTERRA has gone the distance and made sure that we are using UV reflecting products that help us, be very, very protected, but again, not harming the coral reefs, not harming, the creatures that live in those areas that could actually promote disease or death for them. All right, well, let's jump in and speak briefly about each of our 4 products. And again, recognizing, depending on when you're listening to this broadcast, these will be made available as of July 1 of the year 2022, and will be available for you to order as you would any other doTERRA product. So it just so happens that doTERRA made available for those of us who attended their leadership event or are functioning as certain ranking wellness advocates, we were able to purchase this box last week. And so I've got mine, super exciting. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this and show you the ingredients that are in here. So first of all, this is how your your actual face and body lotion comes packaged. So I'm just going to pop that out of the box. Love the orange, right? So, so fun. This fun, bright orange just feels like summer in a bottle. So there we see our hero essential oils of frankincense, helichrysum, and carrot seed. We've got that SPF of 30. We've got that UVA and UVB broad spectrum protection. Now let's talk about SPF. So obviously we get the protection thing. So how do we extend that and make it work for us? So first of all, they say that you already get a 95% improvement in your body's ability to be protected. So sun protection factor is what SPF means. And so you can enhance that already by 95%, even at an SPF of 15, it moves up to 97% with an SPF of 30. So really, truly for being out in the sun for any length of time, I've actually been wearing an SPF of 30 under my face care as a normal routine. So again, I'm thrilled to have doTERRA's products to switch out for. So the trick here is water resistant, right? So having just been in Cabo, it was quite hot and quite humid. Again, I live in Utah, so I'm used to like low humidity. But I was, let's just say I was moist the entire time I was there, sweating. And so I think it's really important to recognize that when I was in my air conditioned room and my skin was dry, that was the right time to put the product on and to let it set. So I like to let it set, and it's recommended to let it set for about 15 minutes. So it kind of becomes kind of like putting your makeup on, right? Like let it set before you go out in the sun and you start sweating. But if you try to put it onto moist skin where you're already sweating or you're already wet from having been in the water, water and oil doesn't mix. That's not your best situation. So I highly recommend, again, you get it on you when you're in a more dry environment, or even if you put it on outside, great, but stay under the umbrella or in some shade or something for a minute, give it 15 minutes, let it set, and then go out and engage in athletic activities or water activities, whatever the case is. And then again, you've got the water resistance and the protection for up to about 80 minutes. And so that would be a time to towel dry off. So if you've been in the water, you've been out on a boat, get wet, and you're going to continue to stay out in the sunshine, do be sure to kind of watch your watch and make sure you reapply during those critical times. What I also love about this product is it's both face and body. And again, it's moisturizing. When you look at these ingredients, you're going to get terrific benefits from the product, and you're going to get some of those moisturizing and nourishing ingredients as well. Now, for those of you who like to geek out, at the end, I'm going to tell you how to obtain some wonderful materials that you can save on your computer, print out, whatever you'd like. But there are also extensive details available to us through what doTERRA calls their PIPs, their product information pages. You can see all the nitty gritty here of ingredients and what is or isn't in the products, which is wonderful. You can see all that listed there, the pricing, everything. There's also some fact sheets for those of you who questions like, and I put this on my baby, is this reef safe? Is it vegan friendly? Is it gluten free? Is it cruelty free? What can I expect? And what sort of products are in this? Now, one thing that's fun to note here is the use of red mandarin. Now, when you smell the products, they smell glorious. They're absolutely delightful. They've got kind of that wild orange aroma. So doTERRA used red mandarin. So look at the FAQ thing here. And it says, what essential oils are in the sun blend? Well, you've got CO2 extracted coconut oil, red mandarin, magnolia, lemongrass, ylang-ylang, carrot seed, magnolia flower, frankincense, and helichrysum. Marvelous essential oil choices. But for any of us who've been educated about fewer humanoids, we sometimes have concerns about being exposed to those in the sunshine. And so doTERRA has gone to all the levels of discovering, what leave-on products with those special ingredients would be safe for the skin. So we have no sun sensitivity. And because of this, doTERRA meets all the regulations that are required for keeping it safe. And we're able to use the red mandarin, which brings in a terrific aroma. Now, the other thing I love is doTERRA is so conscientious, and that is they put this flip top lid. How many of you have ever had a lid on a sunscreen that you've dropped in the sand or it's gone missing, right? I mean, that's such a reality. So I love this flip top choice that they've given us. I think that's incredible. All right. So again, for those geek out pages, we'll show you how to get those here at the last. Next product is the sun spray. Now this is lovely. Here you see it in my hot hands. What I love about it is it's packaged in an aluminum non-aerosol bottle, which is actually important. So first of all, if you travel, I travel a lot. I've traveled all over the world during summer months, and there's nothing worse than hauling heavy stuff, right? So, I mean, this thing is heavy enough with its 6 ounces. It's generously filled with product, but the last thing I want is some super heavy container that adds to the weight. And of course, the aluminum is lined, just like our abode products, with a very special lining to ensure that there's no contamination to the product itself. They're food grade containers. They're marvelous. Now, the 360-degree application nozzle, right? The thing that sprays out, what that means is I can tip this thing upside down. For example, let's say I'm spraying my legs. I'm bending over. I don't want to have, it would be super awkward if I had to keep the bottle upright. You know how when you're doing your spot removal on your clothing for your laundry and you have to keep whatever you're spraying from upright. Well, imagine trying to do that and spray, for example, your feet or your legs. Well, it's impossible. So the 360 makes it just super easy to spray anywhere, including tipping the bottle upside down in order to have that continuous response. Same rules, SPF 30, provides the UVA, UVB broad spectrum protection, the water resistance up to 80 minutes. Same idea, right? Like I'm going to pay attention to if I got wet. I'm going to pay attention to how much longer I'm going to be in the sun, if I've been sweating, any of those kinds of things, and reapply when necessary. I did notice that when I was in Cabo, I got, again, so sweaty. And I got one little tiny ring of sun exposure somewhere where I hadn't paid attention to that. And so it was important to be mindful of that. Now, the question might be, well, when am I going to use all these different products? So here's what I've found, and we haven't gotten to the stick yet, but I've found that the stick is really easy to have in my bag. And again, apply it and let it set. That goes for the spray as well. So when I'm going for the whole body, we have a couple kids that live in a more resort community. There's a lagoon, there's paddle boarding, there's sit out in the sun for hours on end with the grandkids, play in the sand, build sand castles. And so I'm spraying myself from head to toe, and nothing could be easier than this spray, and the fact that it has a fixative nature to it, and the fact that you don't have to like rub it in, right? Super simple. Whereas with the lotion, for example, when I was in Cabo, we had a couple hours in the morning from 10 to 12, and then we had lunch. So out in the sun for a long period of time, where we were playing lawn games, a lot of competition, teams. It was super fun. Now, my legs didn't have as much sun on them, right? As other parts of my body, and I wanted them to catch up. And so I let them have a little bit more exposure. And again, just watch them. But my arms, I knew because of the time of day, the angle of the sun. So it was really, really easy for me to apply the cream or the lotion to my arms and spread that on because I wasn't doing my whole body. And then when it comes to the stick, I found it to be particularly useful for like my head and my shoulders. So it's not necessarily necessary to have all of them on hand at all times. You just need to decide for yourself. What am I doing? Who am I covering? Because I don't know about you, but when I don't enjoy putting sunscreen on, I just don't. I don't like sunscreen per se, but it's a necessary, element to a positive experience with the sun. So I'm thinking about what am I going to be doing? What sort of application method? The last time Jerry and I went to the lagoon with the family, the spray was it. Like we were spraying, again, each other down from head to toe. It worked fantastic. And so those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about is what am I doing? How often am I reapplying? And what am I going to wish I had on hand? Which brings us to our third and final product. So again, this is how it comes for you in this cute little box here. And so we can just open it up and out pops again, another super cute orange container. And wonderful. So kind of like a deodorant style thing of sorts in a stick, really nice. And it's hard, right? So it goes on really, really well. Now, what was cool is in Cabo, we were there with the top leaders in doTERRA and some of the top corporate people. Well, they gave us one of these as a gift for our trip. And so I didn't have access to the other products until I got home and was able to open my box. So just having access to these for the first time. But once again, amazing aroma. You're going to love it. It's gentle. It's soft. It's not too pronounced. Now this is a 40 SPF, so a little bit more length and time, same great attributes of the UVA, UVB broad spectrum protection. It also protects the skin from pollution, so extra benefit there, especially for the face. Again, the same 80 minutes. Again, let it set, reapply as needed when you get wet or sweaty or time is just expired. And then just again, this super sturdy, so very, very hardy container and a twist up tube. So this one I found, I had it in my bag at all times. I carried this around, so maybe other things I was applying, at different times, but this one was with me always, kind of a nice purse size. So no matter what, even if I was like going to go to dinner or sit on the beach later in the day or earlier in the morning, I did yoga every day or something like that out on the lawn, some sort of an exercise class. And so just really conscientious. And again, what's nice is, in fact, how many of us use little highlight powders as part of our makeup to give a little bit of a sheen? This gives a beautiful sheen. So even just the cheekbones, right? The same place we put our highlighter, the top of our forehead, ironically, the very same places where we get tremendous sun exposure. So it can be a beautiful part of your makeup routine or a makeup refreshing routine, and just adds a lovely glow to the face. So I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And again, I found myself using it all over my face and making sure I got it all the way to my hairline. I find those are some of my most vulnerable spots. I have a high forehead, right? So if I don't have a hat on, I'm very careful to get all the way to my hairline, all the way to my, my ear line. And then I place it on my neck. Of course, a big place of exposure was the back of my neck and upper shoulders if I had a t-shirt on when I was in activity, and then around the collarbone and chest area. So I used this a lot and loved it. It was fantastic. So once again, we have geek out sheets for you with doTERRA's pips, all the facts, explaining all the things that we've talked about in regards to vegan, gluten-free, cruelty-free, what's in the blend, etc. Now, this is exciting. We have an after sun restorative. Again, our two actions are protection and restoration. And so this, of course, is our restoration product. It's super hydrating. It's meant to be soothing and nourishing and help the skin recover from its sun exposure. And you can see not only are the frankincense and the helichrysum present, but in this particular product, in a base of aloe vera, you've got copaiba, lavender, peppermint, and blue tansy, right? All the things. So how convenient, how many times have I been, in fact, this is my old sun bag I wanted to show you. And these products, by the way, are very expensive. These are those special kinds of plastics. It's a lined bag. It's water. I don't know if I could call it waterproof, but very much water resistant, right? So something that's super great to have on the beach. It's got this kind of interesting crinkly plastic. And this is what I haul all my stuff around in. And it's pretty big because I feel like I have to carry so many things when it comes to my sun care and things of that nature. And I'm just thrilled that doTERRA has packaged all my oils inside of all my products, because it's going to cut down on the number of things I have to haul around. So I love that. Now, the reason why I brought up that bag is for those who got the kit, the box. And again, I don't know what's coming forward as far as what doTERRA is going to make available, but look what they provided for us. One of those very kind of bags. I think those bags that I just showed you, I can't remember if it was $35 or $50 at Shields to buy one of those. And this came with the kit, like, hello, huge value in and of itself just to get that bag. And again, I don't know what doTERRA will make available for purchase individually, because the product's coming July 1 for individual purchase. Now, when it comes to the after sun care, note to self. So the box we got in our little kit says, be right there, super cute, empty, because thank you, supply chain shortages. Oh my gosh. Despite doTERRA's efforts to have, and I mean efforts to have this line come to us on June 1, that was the original plan, of course, right? Well, due to supply chain mishaps, because it's outside of our control, that's what delayed the product launch until July 1. And now we're going to see the sun care aftercare coming around August 1. So that's yet to be forthcoming. Once again, geek out sheets available for you on those products. So, the bottom line is, do you have toxic products lurking in your swim bag? I in fact, looked through my sun care stuff before I went to Mexico and re-examined, like, what do I got here? And I've been, again, just such a stickler. So I'm happy to say that there wasn't anything I had to toss. But now I'm tossing it because I'm going to put all my doTERRA stuff in there because look, doTERRA's got us covered. And I love this cute illustration of showing not only all 4 of the sun care products, but think of our natural deodorants, our natural Terra Shield, our natural lip balm, all the things that doTERRA has provided for us. So we're totally clear and ready to go and toxin free when it comes to our sun bag and partnering that with all the things we haul to the beach. So your summer adventure awaits you. These are all the doTERRA sun care products. These are the 4, the face and body mineral sunscreen stick, the face and body mineral sunscreen lotion, the body mineral sunscreen spray, and then the forthcoming after sun restorative body mist that's super nourishing and hydrating and again, restorative to our skin. So the thing to recognize is, what is your passion when it comes to what are you doing in the sun? What method of usage or application is going to work best for you? Again, I found reasons. I've always carried all of these products with me. I always carry a stick, most especially for my face. I always carry a lotion because I think it's good for limbs. And then I've always carried a full body spray because when it's that type of an activity, it's way easy to apply it that way. So I'm super thrilled that doTERRA has given us all of these delivery systems. They all make perfect sense. Now, as promised for your geek out stuff, there is a workbook or an ebook that doTERRA assembled and built for us. It's wonderful. It contains all the content we've gone through today in detail in writing. And then we took the time to then attach the geek out sheets for you as well. So we extended the book. So it's all there for your ease. You can print off anything that you want, put it in sheet protectors, or simply save it on your desktop or phone or whatever and have access to it. So in the Facebook post for our live in the thread there, we'll put the link to this. But for those of you who might be listening via Zoom and don't have that easy click, we made an easy link for you. It's tiny.cc/suncare, no capital letters, -workbook. So again, tiny.cc/suncare-workbook. So easy for you to then go and grab. It's already a 28-page booklet in and of itself. And then we added, 4 more doTERRA pips for you, and then 4 FAQ documents on the products. So you can geek out as much as you totally want and have all your questions answered because, hey, your summer is waiting and doTERRA has got you covered naturally.